So Donald Trump has been a big friend of the Saudi royal family, and of course, Mohammed bin Salman. He has approved massive weapons deals with the government of over $140 billion worth of weapons deals with Saudi Arabia. It seems that Trump is on the pathway to approving the Saudis buying the F-35 fighter jet, and of course the program that goes along with it, which would, be very angering to the Iranians, but would also mean that we would lose a certain amount of leverage over them. As the same time that Donald Trump is declaring, hey, we're going to be Saudi Arabia's defensive partner. If Saudi Arabia is attacked, we're going to be there for them, which is a declaration that I don't know if much of the Trump base actually heard, which is part of the agreements that he's making with the Saudis. But we're also giving them the F-35. We're giving them all of our best technology. We're giving them a declaration to defend them. What leverage do we hold over them now? Is it just that we're going to keep integrating with them defensively like this? And hopefully if we give them all the keys to all the toys, we're still going to retain leverage? Either way, all I'm saying is I think there's better ways to retain leverage. Either way, he's been their best friend. And he had a press conference with the Crown Prince in the White House. And before maybe he could get out, before he got his jet from Dubai, he wants his, maybe a Rolls Royce from Saudi Arabia. I don't know what he's going to demand this time. Either way, during this meeting, the press, remember everybody, the press, they asked Donald Trump, hey, isn't that the guy that kidnapped a journalist in a Turkish embassy, then used a bone saw to chop him up, put him in a briefcase and take him out? Isn't that the great reformer who did that chopping, chopping up? And Donald Trump was offended by it. Mind you, the American intelligence community almost universally agrees that, yeah, he did it. Yeah, he ordered that. He didn't personally do it with his hands, of course. He would never want to get his tunic dirty. But he did it himself. He did it himself through orders. He ordered people to do it. And so the intelligence community agrees this. The CIA agrees that this happened. But Donald Trump refuses to acknowledge that this happened, and he either dodges the question or he just denies it. He denies that what we all know to have happened. And the entire time while this is happening, the Crown Prince looks incredibly uncomfortable.
Burns is an immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
That is about to happen. Because there's a few moments where you can see there's a lot of interaction on this video I wanted to check out. Eco, thank you so much for the primer.
Going to go in one way. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. President, have you approved the export licenses for advanced chips to Saudi Arabia? The export licenses?
We are working on that. We're negotiating that right now. Marco, do you want to talk about that, or Scott?
Well, I mean, that's part of what we may have announcements on that later today. But that's what we've been working on is the mechanics by which something like that can be achieved. And it's part of the broader process, part of this broader engagement and cooperation between our two countries.
Certain levels of chips. Yeah.
For the Crown Prince, Your Royal Highness, you're talking about $1 trillion of investment. Could the kingdom continue to do that with oil prices in the mid-60s?
Yeah, we are not creating fake opportunities to, please America, please President Trump. It's real opportunities. For example, when you ask about the AI and the chips, Saudi Arabia have a huge demand of, a huge need of computing power, and we're gonna spend in the short term around $50 billion by consuming those semiconductors for our needs in Saudi Arabia. And with the agreement that we're gonna have with South America, that will allow us to focus that consuming power in the short term by $50 billion from the South America, and long term with hundreds of $billions in the long term. So there is a lot of real opportunities that fit to our need in Saudi Arabia and fit to our investment strategy.
Mr. President.
You don't hear him speaking English very often. Now, is this where they ask about it? I don't know if they ask here or they ask later. We'll skip to later as well, because I think they might ask it at 53.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, The U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust
Who are you with?
And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news, ABC fake news, one of the
But the
worst,
question is
one of the
legitimate,
worst
sir.
in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left and went.
Trump has nothing to do with Trump Incorporated, obviously. You know, Trump has nothing to do with the Trump cryptocurrency, which many financiers are funneling money through to peddle influence. Trump has nothing to do with the presidential planes that he's getting gifted and that is going to go to his presidential library after and will likely be abused for personal use. Trump has nothing to do with any of this. Remember fucking the peanut farm? The peanut farm. And we've degraded ourselves to this level. I mean, the first administration, the Saudis were buying out rooms at his hotels. For what reason? Why would the Saudi royal family be buying out rooms at Trump Hotel? For fun? For shits and giggles? Why is Jared Kushner getting tons and tons of money from this part of the world after working in the administration? For no reason? And in fields that he has no experience in. I mean, this guy was a realtor, and now he's getting all this stuff for private equity. No, that's not how that. You don't just get billions of dollars for private equity for no reason. So, I mean, this idea that there's of no question or no influence, this administration is probably one of the most blatantly obvious in its use of the office for profit. And his just deviation away from it seems to be an idea that, if you just don't talk about it, it will be normalized. If you just assume that this is how it's always been, then maybe nobody will talk about it. But the standards for what the president can and cannot use the office to use in order to enrich themselves or their friends. The fact that Trump was able to do basically like a Tesla ad off of the lawn of the White House. The fact that this Trump cryptocurrency scam can exist in the first place. The fact that all of his businesses can profit from him being in the White House. The fact that Jared Kushner has been able to get so much money in private equity from so many of these Middle Eastern royals. These are all problems that are going to have to be acknowledged through reform, because I don't think public outrage is going to stop these guys from gouging on the state.
I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Just you ask, Mr. President, if you allow me to answer. I feel painful about the families of 9/11 in America, but we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden used Saudi people.
Notice that he's talking about, look, the Saudi state was not involved in 9/11. They were members of high influential Saudi society who had relationships with Osama bin Laden, who was a Saudi. And there's questions about whether certain members of the Saudi royal family or connected to the Saudi establishment could have given money to certain groups, or maybe there was one or two people who might have known of planning. But that's different from the state itself being involved in planning. Now, these intricacies and these details, the Saudis would rather not know the finer details of it, period. Because if you find out that a minister was involved, and maybe not through an official government capacity, but still through a private capacity, that's still terribly embarrassing. But this is still the issue he'd rather focus on. The issue where it's going to be much easier to obfuscate than Jamal Khashoggi, because the evidence is so overwhelming, the consensus is so universal in the intelligence community that the less he talks about Khashoggi, the better. He's much smarter in that area. And after Trump basically just batted the question away, now there needs to be no answering for the murder of a journalist. Here's my question. If it was an American journalist, would that change things? Genuine question. Do you think if this man ordered the murder of an American journalist in an embassy, let's say I or a different journalist or somebody, probably somebody more attuned to critiquing the royal family, walked into an embassy and they were bone sawed, put into a briefcase and done in like Jamal Khashoggi was, would this change the dynamic in that room at all? Would that lead to even a meeting cancellation? How much would Trump go out of his way to defend the media that he is so oftentimes adversarial with, as he openly questions whether or not outlets that do not cover him in a favorable manner should even have a broadcast license? When you do not have a focus on the relationships with, the relationship with the press being upheld and the press being strong and strong independent press freedoms, these types of things are completely lost through the cracks. Now, look, I think Joe Biden would have still done deals with the Saudis. I don't know if he would have done $140 billion deals. I don't know if he would have done F-35 approvals. I don't know if he would have gone out of his way to defend Jamal Khashoggi in a meeting in the White House like this. I don't even know if he would have given not Jamal Khashoggi, but the Crown Prince a meeting in the White House like this. But man, he was really done in by that question. Trump didn't like it.
That event, for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia, it's bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation, to continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world. It's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for, no real purpose or nothing illegal way. And it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that. And it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Crown Prince has been instrumental in helping lifting the sanctions on Syria. Will there be any joint investment between the U.S. and Syria? And will you visit Damascus?
Are you from Syria?
No, but
Where are you from?
I'm from Palestine.
Oh, you're making a lot of progress, huh? Very good. Well, they like me. The Palestinians like me. The Palestinians are doing very well, actually. I think we're working very closely with a lot of people that make everybody happy, including Israel, the Palestinians, and everybody. That's very interesting. No, I think that I will tell you, the Crown Prince called me, and he specifically asked me if I would lift the sanctions on Syria because he wants to see Syria make it. As you know, the leader of Syria was just here, and we had a great meeting, and he's a strong guy, and I guess you need a strong person to run it. And I think Syria's made tremendous progress. We did lift the sanctions at the request of the Crown Prince. Also, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, called me specifically. He said, if you don't lift the sanctions, Syria doesn't have a chance. If you do, they have a very good chance. And between the two of them and some others, I lifted the sanctions. And the results so far have been pretty good.
Okay. Anyway, I thought the most interesting part of this was the reaction on the Khashoggi question, which seemed to just be batting it away, saying, bet it didn't happen, who cares really, and just doing everything he can to get away from that, as well as this just rabid defense of the idea that there's been no profiteering from Trump around the White House as he's doing ads on the White House lawn. His cryptocurrency scheme has been making more money than ever, and his businesses have been thriving. Okay.